Let's just dive right into it, shall we? Today we are completely unpacking the cinematic mystery box that is the newly announced sixth theatrical installment of one of the most legendary horror franchises of all time, Evil Dead Burn. You know, whenever we hear those early whispers about the Necronomicon opening up again, it sets a very specific, deeply visceral tone in the horror community. It's like a collective shiver goes down our spines because the moment those ancient, flesh-bound pages start turning, we know we are in for just absolute, unrelenting chaos. We are going to take a really deliberate step-by-step journey through every single detail, theory, and casting choice that has emerged for this brand new standalone sequel. We're going to break down the brilliant minds stepping behind the camera, the fresh faces stepping into that blood-soaked spotlight, and what this incredibly aggressive new title really implies for the future of the lore. So settle in, maybe grab a comfort blanket, because we are diving incredibly deep into the absolute madness currently brewing in this terrifying universe.
The Deadites are rising again, and this time they are promising to rain down absolute fire. Following the massive critical and commercial acclaim of Evil Dead Rise back in 2023, I think it's safe to say the expectations for what comes next are truly off the charts. That film proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that audiences aren't just willing to watch this stuff, they are absolutely starving for this specific, uncompromising brand of horror. I mean, think about it. When a movie weaponizes a simple everyday kitchen cheese grater to create one of the most agonizing moments in recent cinematic history, the bar for visceral terror is permanently elevated. Furthermore, the brilliant shift we saw from that lonely, isolated cabin in the woods to a claustrophobic, high-rise urban environment showed us that the Deadites can thrive literally anywhere. That massive commercial success guarantees a significantly larger budget and infinitely higher stakes for whatever fresh hell is coming our way next.
The visceral reality of this upcoming nightmare became totally concrete when the official release date locked in for July 24th, 2026. This date suddenly felt incredibly real on December 9th, 2024. Out of nowhere, an official script cover was dropped on Instagram, completely setting the horror community ablaze. Seeing that scorched, blackened cover page bearing the title Evil Dead Burn just sent our minds racing with horrific possibilities. But let's talk about that date for a second. Securing a prime date right in the middle of the summer of 2026, that tells us the studio is acting with immense, undeniable confidence. They are positioning this not just as a niche seasonal Halloween drop that you watch in October, but as a major, high-profile summer theatrical event. Moving a grueling horror picture into blockbuster season proves they firmly believe they have a massive, crowd-pleasing spectacle on their hands.
Now, we really need to consider the central mystery here. What does the title Burn actually signify? We have to slowly unravel this, because if you know the franchise, the lore of the Necronomicon Ex Mortis is famously treacherous. If you recall, Rise utilized a really clever double meaning, right? It was the literal rising of the ancient Deadites, but also a reference to the literal high-rise apartment setting. So we have to wonder if we are staring down a completely literal interpretation this time around. Could this imply a global apocalyptic twist in the mythology? Decades ago, Army of Darkness teased these massive world-altering stakes, and a title like Burn might actually suggest we are finally headed for a literal hell on earth scenario. If the Evil Dead are perpetuating a massive burn on a worldwide scale, it would permanently alter the very DNA of the franchise, unleashing something far beyond a single isolated location. But hold on, there is an alternate, highly visceral theory to that whole apocalypse idea. What if Burn directly refers to the primary weapon of choice? For over 40 years, our iconic definitive weapon against the undead has been the roaring, rusty hardware store chainsaw. It's legendary, but imagine the sheer visual spectacle if we upgrade from a chainsaw to military-grade incendiary weapons. What if we are following a gritty, desperate new protagonist armed to the teeth with a roaring flamethrower? Just picture, in agonizing slow motion, the absolute cinematic carnage of a cackling deadite melting under a massive blast of liquid fire on the big screen. It's a terrifying thought, but it aligns perfectly with the gruesome, practical effects-heavy legacy of the series, while injecting this wildly chaotic, incredibly violent new element into our traditional undead-slaying arsenal. Now, executing this level of carnage requires a very specific type of visionary behind the camera. Enter Sebastian Vanacek. He's the French filmmaker personally handpicked by franchise creators Sam Raimi and Rob Tabert. Let me tell you, that golden endorsement alone speaks volumes. Vanacek recently exploded onto the international scene with his phenomenal feature debut Infested. If you haven't seen it, it's an absolutely paralyzing spider horror film set entirely within a quarantined, rundown French apartment building. He didn't just win Best Picture and Best Director at Fantastic Fest, he demonstrated a masterful, almost sickening command of inescapable dread. In Infested, he utilizes intense claustrophobia, relentless pacing, and a suffocating atmosphere to basically break the audience's nerves. Relating that exact panic-inducing skill set directly to the chaotic, inescapable trap of an Evil Dead movie, it makes him the absolute perfect architect for this upcoming nightmare. And he's not doing it alone. Vinicek is bringing vital creative synergy to this project by teaming up once again with his Infested co-writer, Florent Bernard. This detail alone provides me with incredible confidence in the script's horrific potential. Long-term writing partnerships often lead to significantly tighter scripts, richer character arcs, and a completely unified vision of terror. When a director and writer have already proven they can successfully collaborate to create a deeply effective, award-winning horror narrative, translating that shared shorthand to the Evil Dead universe is a massive advantage. We know for sure this won't just be an empty, soulless gore fest. They know exactly how to write genuine, desperate survivors that we actually care about. That ensures that when the deadite massacre inevitably begins, the emotional stakes are going to be just as high as the body count. When speaking about his vision to the studio, Vinicek explicitly stated he wants to make a nasty film, a film that really hurts. I want to linger on that for a second because that chilling statement is exactly what we need to hear as fans of extreme horror. He is intending to craft a deeply cathartic experience that leaves the audience feeling physically tested and completely drained as the credits roll. Let's be honest, watching this franchise has always required a certain level of physical endurance. Audiences actively seek out that punishing, relentless tone that makes these movies so legendary. Vinicek is promising to put all the darkness he has inside himself right up onto the screen, completely abandoning any notion of a light, campy romp in favor of the raw, grueling punishment that defined the original films. But here is the genuinely brilliant move lying in the industry mechanics happening behind the scenes. Warner Bros., New Line Cinema, and Sam Raimi have actually granted Vinicek complete creative freedom. In the modern Hollywood landscape, which is so heavily defined by overbearing studio interference and endless focus group testing, handing a major, bloody IP over to an international indie filmmaker without restrictions is both a massive risk and a deeply visionary move. The studio explicitly wanted this film to stand entirely apart from previous entries, and Raimi empowered the director to mold the franchise into his distinctly terrifying vision. It proves they trust his uncompromising approach entirely. This is the exact producer ethos that allows boundary-pushing horror to thrive rather than being watered down for mass consumption. So, who is going to be fighting for their lives, and where is this all going down? We are tracking a production schedule slated for late 2024 or early 2025, taking the entire shoot down to the atmospheric, rugged landscapes of New Zealand. This location builds a perfect narrative bridge, right? Because New Zealand is deeply baked into the very DNA of the franchise. Setting the stage down there isn't just about tax breaks. It's about utilizing a specific type of isolating wilderness and tapping into the world-class practical effects studios that are native to the area. You can practically feel the damp, isolated atmosphere of the shooting location just thinking about it. Returning to New Zealand guarantees we are in for stunningly remote environments and the highest caliber of grotesque, tangible monster effects that the entire industry has to offer. Vinicek is injecting a distinctly European psychological dread into the narrative framework here, and it's fascinating. He is taking an English-speaking French protagonist and throwing them into a chaotic, terrifying survival scenario completely surrounded by American characters. This language barrier and cultural clash immediately establishes a heavy layer of isolation and deep disorientation. Think about how scary that is. Even before the ancient incantations are spoken and the deadites mount their very first attack, our lead is already going to feel entirely alienated and out of place in a foreign environment. It traps the protagonist inside their own mind while surrounded by monsters. It is a brilliant psychological setup that amplifies the terror of a demonic outbreak, creating thick layers of tension and unease long before the very first drop of blood is ever spilled. Anchoring this intense psychological dread is the wildly talented Swiss actress Suela Yacoub, who has been cast as the absolute lead in this standalone sequel. You likely recognize her gravitas and sheer on-screen intensity from her incredible performance in Dune Part 2. Casting a serious, heavy-hitting dramatic actress of her caliber proves that this film is taking its character work incredibly seriously. She brings a specific, deeply emotive acting style that elevates the surrounding horror. When you place a grounded, highly capable dramatic performer into the dead center of absolute bloody madness, the terror feels exponentially more real and devastating. She's going to make us feel every single ounce of the agony and desperation as the deadite curse takes hold. Now, we absolutely cannot ignore the eternal question hovering over the entire franchise, a question that follows every single new installment. Will Ash Williams return? The emotional weight of Bruce Campbell officially stepping back from live-action appearances after the poignant finale of Ash vs. Evil Dead is still deeply felt by the community. His shadow looms massively over every single new protagonist introduced to the lore. The creators constantly walk a razor-thin tightrope between honoring his legacy and successfully moving the universe forward. While Campbell has explicitly stated he has zero qualms about the movies continuing without him as the focal point, the tantalizing mystery of whether he might one day step out of retirement remains a permanent fixture in horror discourse. It's the question we all secretly want a yes to.
The incredibly deep lore of the overall Bible created by Sam and Ivan Raimi is exactly what keeps these narrative doors wide open for us. They have constructed a master timeline, a massive lore Bible tracing the dark history of the Necronomicon, specifically the 3 different volumes of the Naturum de Monto shown in Army of Darkness. This brilliant piece of retconning allows multiple timelines and entirely different curses to exist simultaneously without destroying the established continuity. It is an absolutely ingenious way to expand the universe, showing how different volumes of the book corrupt different people across the past, present, and future. It completely satisfies hardcore lore enthusiasts while giving new filmmakers a blank canvas to just paint with blood.
With Bruce Campbell remaining heavily involved as an active producer, we have to theorize about the possibility of a stealthy live-action return. Think back to the incredible vinyl Easter egg from Rise. That exact moment, sitting in theaters realizing it might actually be Ash Williams screaming through time on that recording. It was pure cinematic magic. Now spin that into a vision for Byrne. What if Campbell makes a physical cameo, but completely buried under heavy prosthetics as an incredibly ugly, unrecognizable deadite? A hidden, disguised cameo would be an iconic treat that would absolutely break the internet upon discovery, all without disrupting a new protagonist's story or stealing the vital spotlight from the brand new cast. Which naturally leads into a fascinating exploration of cinematic tropes regarding Easter eggs and nostalgia. Modern reboots frequently fall victim to the dangers of member berries and toxic nostalgia, relying way too heavily on endless loops of old catchphrases instead of genuinely terrifying audiences. While callbacks can be incredibly fun, Evil Dead truly thrives on original nightmares rather than egregious fan service. For instance, having a character in Rise explicitly say Ash's catchphrase, "Come get some," occasionally felt just a tiny bit forced. Vonacek has the opportunity to honor the sprawling legacy of the franchise quietly, utilizing subtle visual tributes rather than overt winks to the camera. The absolute focus must remain on crafting an uncompromising nightmare that stands entirely on its own 2 feet. We are currently witnessing a massive acceleration in the franchise's heartbeat, signaling a major shift in studio strategy. Think about the agonizing 10-year wait between Fede Alvarez's brutal 2013 reboot and Lee Cronin's Rise in 2023. We literally survived a decade-long drought of theatrical deadite cinema. But now, with Vanacek's Byrne arriving in 2026, the pace has radically changed. We are entering a veritable golden age. The new strategy clearly embraces an anthology approach, delivering a fresh, standalone vision from a hungry new director every 2 or 3 years. This anthology cadence keeps the franchise uniquely fresh and unpredictable compared to other stagnant slasher series that just constantly reboot the exact same tired timeline over and over again. And the expansion of this universe doesn't even stop there. There's actually a completely separate, currently untitled Evil Dead movie secretly in concurrent development right now, written and directed by rising star Francis Galuppi. He's the brilliant mind behind the remarkably tense, gritty crime thriller The Last Stop in Yuma County. He pitched an original concept directly to Raimi and Tapert, and they immediately greenlit it, theorizing how his specific flavor of suffocating crime thriller tension could translate into a backwoods deadite massacre is just thrilling. It is practically unprecedented to have 2 independent films within this franchise running in concurrent development like this. We are staring down the barrel of back-to-back world-class horror experiences, proving the Book of the Dead is more alive than ever. So we must consider the undeniable thematic weight of everything we've unpacked today. With an uncompromising director promising a deeply nasty, cathartic film that physically hurts to watch, an aggressive title hinting at incendiary carnage, and a fiercely expanded lore Bible granting complete creative freedom, we are standing on the precipice of greatness. Are we heading into the darkest, most punishing era of the Evil Dead yet? Can Sebastian Vanich truly deliver on the franchise's original 1981 promise to give us the ultimate experience in grueling terror?
The horrific possibilities waiting for us in the summer of 2026 are practically limitless. We will simply have to wait, hold our breath, and see what fresh hell is waiting to be unleashed from the pages of the Necronomicon.